Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. And this is the place where I come to meet myself on the page to share with you my creative practice and process and how I use art journaling as a way into those inner dark reaches of myself to work through challenges, to explore dreams. And what I love about art journaling is this process and these pages are just for me. They're not for anyone else. Even though I am sharing them here with you on the page, I do a lot of journaling on my own as well. And this month, it's National Poetry Month. We've been exploring poetry, looking at the different ways that poetry can help us go inside a little bit deeper and explore things a little more profoundly. And the more that we show up for our art journaling practice, I think the more we can boost our self esteem and increase our confidence in every area of our lives, not just in our artwork, but the more that we give voice and color to all the different things that we're feeling and experiencing, the more we learn to name that, the more we work through some of the stories, the shadows that maybe we're holding on to, then the more that we can take a sort of more objective look at that and meet ourselves on the page. Good morning, Tori, or just be more confident in the rest of the world as well. Good morning, good morning. It's great to see you here, and I realize I've lost my chat box on here. Judy, good morning. Barbara, good morning. Great to see you here. So we're going to talk about the themes of self-esteem and confidence this morning, and we're going to do it through the art journal page that I'm going to be working on today, and through a beautiful poem and some fun silhouette work inspired by an artist I saw in a magazine. But let's start with this gorgeous poem by Rainer Maria Rilke, who was a German poet. I think he was German, called Sunset. Slowly the west reaches for clothes of new colors, which it passes to a row of ancient trees. You look, and soon these two worlds both leave you. One part climbs toward heaven, one sinks to earth, leaving you not really belonging to either. Not so hopelessly dark as that house that is silent, not so unswervingly given to the eternal as that thing that turns to a star each night and climbs, leaving you. It is impossible to untangle the threads. Your own life, timid and standing high and growing, so that sometimes blocked in, sometimes reaching out, one moment your life is a stone in you, and the next a star. Sunset by Rainer Maria Rilke. And I love this poem, and I often think about the way we live our lives as like we need to have roots and wings. And this is the thing that helps us grow in confidence and self esteem, as well as to be in a place of self compassion, is to remember that we need to be the stone and the star. We need to have roots and be grounded, and we need to reach for the heights. And so I really appreciated the beauty of this poem. And I always look for poems that have a lot of visual imagery that I find inspiring. And so, what I saw in this poem was the idea of the sunset this morning. And I've also had this beautiful image from Spirituality and Health magazine. I'm not sure who the artist is, but I love these silhouette of figures painted inside of them. And so I'm going to use that as my inspiration for my figure in my art journal this morning. And I blew it up a little bit and did some fussy cutting to trim that image out. So I'm going to be using this in a little bit. I did some journaling about just how I was feeling this morning. I love starting my pages with journaling and some of my own handwriting. And I felt with this poem sort of feeling all of the feels, right? That idea again of needing to be rooted and reach for the stars. I've been having a little bit of a existential identity crisis lately around my work in the world. And from a content perspective and a branding perspective, and I have lots of ideas. And poetry helps me remember and sort of pinpoint where's the malaise, right? Where is that crisis? And so I was really drawn to it is impossible to tangle the threads of my own life. Timid and standing high and growing, sometimes blocked in, sometimes reaching out. One moment your life is a stone in you, and the next a star. So I loved all the different visuals of this particular poem. And so I'm going to start by just painting that sunset and getting some color down on the page. And that's what I know right now. And we're going to see where we can get to. I also am going to do an experiment this morning. So it's nice to have palette paper, but it always seems silly to buy palette paper. So my husband and I are huge coffee drinkers. We shop at Sprouts. And I was, good morning, Blanca. And I was emptying out one of these bags one day, and it smells still smells like coffee. But I was emptying out one, and I kept throwing these bags away and thinking, okay, I got to find a better use for these. So these could actually become great journal pages. But I also noticed that these pages have some nice plastic liners inside. So I rinsed the bits of coffee off of the page, and I want to see if this plastic liner, like, is it pretty solid on here, and will it work as a palette? Because anytime we do that, then that page just can become some more super fun collage fodder. So I am going to start and experiment with using this as a palette this morning. So again, I'm going to get a sunset going here on this page, and I'm going to just sort of randomly pick some colors for me of the reds, the oranges, the bright yellow, and then that transitions often into maybe some of those dark greens of the land below. And he mentioned some trees, and somewhere in here I have some, not that turquoise, maybe we'll try some of that little phthalo blue. And I'm working on a pretty small page, so I'm not necessarily going to get a huge like sunset here. So I'm just going to play with a few of these colors, and again I'm just getting that background down, inspired by the gorgeous imagery in Rainer Maria Rilke's poem Sunset. And I did put a link to the words of that poem in the description of this video. So if you're inspired by Rilke like I am, you can go and find that. So I'm just getting some of this paint down on my palette here. I love this phthalo blue, and it was one of those, it's a green shade, and it was one of those ones that like disappeared into the bottom of my bucket of paints, and then I rediscovered it. I love that when that happens. So it's great to kind of dig through your paints periodically and check that out. And let me grab some water here. Bear with me. Monday morning. And I taught a collage workshop this weekend, so didn't have all my painty things around me. So I'm almost wanting to maybe start with some of that blue. And I did put just some white acrylic paint, not gesso, down on these pages first. And I'm going to let all these colors kind of just blend together. I may need to come back in with some white and do something maybe a little bit different to get a little more of the clarity and individuality of those colors. But I'm starting by just putting color down onto the page. So I want to talk about this idea of how art journaling is so healing and can really help boost our self esteem and our confidence. And part of that, now I'm really loving how that's going, and part of that is simply by virtue of practice, right? It's every time we show up to meet ourselves here on the art journal, we learn something about ourselves. And for me, art journaling is a great place to practice my craft in terms of how I play with paint. It can help me find my creative voice. But really, the primary reason that I make art is for personal growth and healing. It is about that really emotional journey that we're all on every single day of making our way in the world. And you wouldn't meet me and think that I'm someone who lacks confidence. I have a high self esteem, I have a lot of confidence. And like everyone else, I have those moments where I get caught up in comparison. I can get, lost in look at what other people are doing and how much better at it they are than I am. We all have those moments. Like I would love to be able to write poetry like Rilke. I just signed up for a class on, so I have been saying I'm writing my next book. I've already written three, one with someone else and two on my own. And I love to write. My PhD is in literature and poetry. And so I signed up for this class on doing an arty book pitch because I know that I want my next book to be an illustrated book. And I've been kind of stuck and stopped. And so I signed up for this class and I went into the Facebook group for the first time this morning and was just completely intimidated by the quality of the artist in the group. And I really appreciated the woman who is teaching the class and running the group, speaking to directly to that, to not be intimidated, that these people have been practicing, their craft for years and taken lots of classes with her. And it was such a good reminder of how easy it is to find ourselves caught up in comparison and, oh, I'm not that good, or I can't possibly do that. And that might happen in our work life, it might happen in our community lives, or even in our own families, where we get caught in that trap of, I'm not as good as. And I want everyone to remember that you're good enough. You're exactly perfect right here, right now, exactly as you are, and that we all have the room for growth and improvement. I'm a lifelong learner. I never stop learning. That's why I take so many other people's classes. I get bored pretty quickly with things and like to try new things. And I like to share what I'm learning with others as well. So I'm being mindful of this page's newsprint, and it's very thin, and I'm noticing it's getting a little flimsy. So I'm being a little mindful of that. But what I know is that when I started making art, my world changed, my life changed, and my confidence grows with every piece that I make. And that confidence flows over into other things that I'm doing. I still have this funny little quirky bird painting that was one of my very first paintings that I ever did in a workshop with Whitney Freya. And I absolutely adore this quirky little bird. It's not that it's a great painting, but that it was my first painting, and I can look back at that and remember how far I've come in my own art and creative process. And when I look at art as a metaphor or analogy for the rest of my life, then I can see all the ways that I have grown over the years. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for what we've done across time, right? For what we've done across time. So this is really interesting. So I just kind of absent-mindedly sat here chatting with you and working on this page. And I'm wanting this to be this nice dark silhouette. And now I'm thinking that, okay, maybe this is going to be the sunset page, and I really want this silhouette to stand out a little bit differently. But I had a ton of fun painting all of those bright colors on there, but maybe I want some of those bright colors to come back, and we're just going to have this one tree over here. And I'm thinking the poem is going to probably get flipped, do a flip up in here like I've been doing with some of the other ones, or I might tuck in one of the envelopes that I made last week into the page as well. So we'll see what's going to happen, but I'm going to leave that page, and I think I'm going to come back in with my some white paint and my handy dandy little brayer and just put a little bit of white over the top of all of this. But I actually really love this super simple sunset painting, super fun to paint. I painted out all of my journaling for the most part. I can still see some little itty bits here and there, and that was way too much white paint. So I'm just gonna put that on my palette there. And these colors are probably all gonna mix together. They're still wet. I didn't try to get them dry. This page is really bumpy because it's in this big fat journal. So interestingly, you know, the brayer's doing kind of funky things on the page. And you know how I am about painting things and painting them over. Thank you, Tori. I love just watching my own process, right? Like it's like, okay, that wasn't quite right. What can we try differently? So that's a little bit better. And now I can come back over the top with, I think, just some of those sunset colors and bring some of those colors back. I still want some of that darkness around and underneath her there. Maybe get a little bit more of this yellow. So this is a cadmium yellow hue. I really like this yellow. You can tell because it's almost gone. And it's transparent, so it usually shows whatever is underneath it. Again, getting my brush nice and dry. Working in these thin pages in this junk journal, I want to make sure that I'm not ripping that page. And I'm going to work these colors just a little bit more together, smooth them out a little bit more. Just a little bit of that red in there. And they're mixing with the white. Again, it's totally fine. I'm not too worried. This is all just those early layers of the background. And again, just so now I'm getting that more of that sort of moody feeling that I wanted, of that, you know, twilight sense. Good morning, Leslie. Great to see you, my friend. Getting that sort of twilight sense happening here. And bring back just a little bit of that dark around the bottom of her as well. So I love the more vibrant colors here. That works really well on this page, but where I'm going to do this silhouette, I need something a little bit different. Less color and texture. I might even decide it needs to still be a little bit brighter, but first I'm going to hit this with my dryer and get it super dry. So bear with me for just a minute. Right. And we had a couple of new people join us, so I'm going to read this poem one more time because it's so beautiful. And this is the inspiration for today's spread, Sunset by Rainer Maria Rilke. And the more I read it, the more that I connect with it. And it's powerful to read poems out loud or listen to someone read them out loud. It helps those words flow into, over, and around us. Sunset by Rainer Maria Rilke. Slowly the west reaches for clothes of new colors, which it passes to a row of ancient trees. You look, and soon these two worlds both leave you. One part climbs toward heaven, one sinks to earth, leaving you, not really belonging to either. Not so hopelessly dark as that house is silent, not so unswervingly given to the eternal as that thing that turns to a star each night and climbs, leaving you. It is impossible to untangle the threads. Your own life, timid and standing high and growing, so that, sometimes blocked in, sometimes reaching out, one moment your life is a stone in you, and the next a star. Again, I love the visual imagery of this poem, hence the sunset. It's one of my favorite times of day. And so I was sorry, let me clear my throat just a second. Sorry about that. So I was super inspired by this artist, Gorgeous Silhouette from Spirituality and Health magazine, and how she had painted inside these silhouettes. And it made me think of this beautiful poem by Rilke and this idea of one moment your life is a stone in you, and next a star, and wanting to capture the imagery of that poem and this idea that we contain the multitudes, right? We're connected to everything, and I think sometimes we forget our interconnectedness. Mine too, Tori. I keep wanting to say Toby because of Oberly, and I keep mixing your names together, and I apologize, Tori. And I love both your names. And there's always great artists that I've never heard of in that magazine as well. But there was something about creating this idea of a silhouette that contains this idea of us being all of the things. And I love the idea of her as a silhouette in the magazine here. And I have a couple of options. So I could just glue her in here with some matte medium and paint over the top of her, or I could trace the silhouette and then paint it in, which I think is the direction that I want to go. So I'm just going to take this little white Posca marker here, and I'm just going to trace the outline of this silhouette. I think I also really loved that she's wearing like a big ball gown. I love dresses with long, flowy skirts. So I was sort of drawn to that as well. Loved the little ruffle around the bottom. And before I add color to her, I'm going to add white paint. So when I do add color, I can really get that image to pop out. So I'm going to come in here with a pretty small brush. And some of the other ways that I think that art journaling can help us to really boost our self-esteem and increase our confidence is by being willing to experiment, to try new things, Nothing boosts our confidence like trying new things. Even if we don't succeed at those things, it's the effort that increases our sense of, I can do that. As Glennon Doyle says, I can do hard things. And I think it's so true. And the page of your art journal can become a metaphor for the rest of your life. The more that you're willing to try and experiment and explore all the inner regions of yourself, all the different skills on the page, the more you meet yourself with honesty and bring all of you to your art journal page, the more it starts to have an impact on the rest of your life. I think Zentangle is such a great example of that. When I first discovered Zentangle and went to seminar, and it was that reminder that, wow, I am creative. I can do this. It was such a boost to my confidence. And from that gorgeous, simple process of Zentangle gave birth to so many other forms and expressions of art and creativity in my life, and gave me the courage even to take classes with other teachers and learn new things. And I still personally have found, I kind of like the white, but it doesn't work with where I want to go with the page, but I love how much she's standing out there. So I'm going to think about that for a minute. It gave me the courage when I published my first book, which on my own. So my very first book was a book about healing relationships I wrote with a former colleague when we were doing parenting and relationship coaching. And the second two I wrote were both business books, one about business planning and marketing and one about time management. And my business book, The Artful Marketer, has a Zentangle mandala, what we call a Zendala, on the cover. And I wouldn't have had the courage to put my own art on the cover and some of my own little doodles on the inside if I hadn't gone through seminar and been practicing Zentangle. By the time my book was published, for probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years at that point. And I wouldn't have the courage to do what I'm about to do, which is to write and illustrate my fourth book. And I have no idea how to illustrate a book or create an illustrated book. I've known since I had the idea for this book that it needed to be different, that I had to art my way into this book. And I'm very comfortable writing. I love to write. And I haven't been finding the words for this book and knowing I needed a different approach. And so I was so excited to find this new class that starts today on arty books. So I'm sure I'll be sharing some of my process here as well. And I find there's just always so much mindfulness just in these simple little acts of putting paint on the paper, that it doesn't have to be complicated, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. So often I think that because of our own inner voice and inner judge, that we tend to overcomplicate our life. We tend to overthink. We tend to make things really hard because if they seem really hard, then we won't do them. And And I absolutely love this phthalo blue. And so far, I'm finding my little coffee bag here seems to be holding the paint. It's not bleeding through to the other side, so it seems like it's going to work great as a little piece of palette paper. So I love recycling that way and not throwing those bags away every week. You know, we go through a couple of pounds of coffee a week. We're big coffee drinkers in this house. And I'm just bringing some of that blue across over here to, again, I want these two pages to feel like they're part of the same story. Also feeling like maybe it needs a little bit of white wispy clouds here on the page. It's interesting, she ended up being bigger than this tree, but I'm not sure that that really matters because the poem is going to end up on this page, and I love that she's sort of gazing at the poem. And I'm feeling I want to keep her pretty simple. The original was complex, but it's this idea of the star and the stone. And so maybe just with some simple Zentangle patterns in this silhouette, I can come in and illustrate how I'm feeling about this poem. And again, it's that, you know, that idea of roots and wings, right? Of stars and stones, that we're both, and we're neither here nor there, but we're some of all of the parts and the pieces. Also really sensing I want to really brighten up my yellows to have that more vibrant sense of the sunset. So I'm going to brighten up those yellows a little bit and give this blue time to dry. And then I'm going to come back in and add some patterns and designs just inside of our figure, our collage here. And I'm adding a little bit of just that, you know, opaque white, titanium white acrylic to my yellow, because I really want that yellow to stand out and be the brightness here in the light. And the poem talks about that transition from light to dark, right? That transition from light to dark. And I want to be able to maybe see a little bit more of that transition on the page and not have it all be quite so moody and dark. And I love how the sky can still be light and we start to see glimpses of the dark, and then, you know, it gets darker as the sun sets towards the horizon, right? So just noticing all of that. All right. I'm going to hit this with the dryer and then see what I can do with my little figure here. And I feel like I can never say often enough about making sure that your acrylic paint is really dry before you use pens or markers over the top of it. And I don't know if this looks white, may be dead. If so, I'm just going to go for that bigger one. Yeah, okay, so we're just going to go for this one. And I'm going to do maybe just some river stone type little patterns here along the bottom of her dress to sort of capture the feeling of the stones and the stars. And again, this is, you know, it's a prettyish page. It's not a perfect page. I'm not in this for the make it pretty. I'm in this for what is this teaching me and telling me about myself. And as I'm drawing this sort of rock wall here along the bottom of her dress, it feels a little bit heavy. And sometimes that reminder that we can get weighted down by our thoughts, our beliefs, our stories. I can get weighted down by my thoughts, the beliefs, and the stories, and that I need to remember to lighten up and to remember that I am also the stars. I'm going to bring that white outline back again. I really want her to pop out from the page. So again, just in that process of adding those layers, painting over, bringing it back again. And I love this of having her be gazing, trying to decide if I want to be able to see that tree, and I'm not sure that it matters. I want to be able to see the poem. And I want this sense that, I'm also part of the stars and the galaxies. And it also felt important to have this heart center, and things are flowing out from the center of her heart. And I really loved the line in the poem about how it is impossible to untangle all the threads. And so maybe this heart is going to have some threads that flow down and out and through. How's everyone else doing this morning? What are you working on, thinking about? What do you think about this beautiful poem by Rilke? And again, just this illustration of her, right? And I'm almost wanting to maybe give her some wings as she's sort of staying rooted and grounded here, and maybe some little feet here as well to show that she's still mobile. And let's give her some little hands here. Also, just give her a little bit more character, and I'm feeling like I want this growth to be happening in the center of the piece. And maybe there's hearts dangling from all of these threads, all the many attachments, the people, the things that I love, all dangling here from the center of the many threads that we weave. And wanting to bring in one of my favorite Zentangle patterns, Muka, often appears in much of my artwork. Bring in some of that growth and lightness, some of that things are moving in both directions, right? We have the stars moving up and out. We have the hearts flowing down, and then we have our nice solid ground, but things are still growing as well. Beautiful. Thank you for finding the artist, Josephine Jacobson. Beautiful. I love that you're thinking of your sister and your closeness. Wonderful. And I think maybe I'll add some little zingers, Some little bit of growth to the top of these. And this feels like a piece that's about inner wisdom and my own connection to my inner wisdom. Thank you, Blanca. And again, the more that we play on the page, the more we seek experimentation, the more we look for, the prompt, the word, the phrase, the poem as a way in, the closer we get to ourselves, to others, the more we're able to see the dark places and bring light to them, and to the stuck places. I've been thinking a lot lately about identity and how we get to these places in our lives where we can so easily lose our sense of self. And this is the majority of the work that I do privately, one-on-one with clients, using so many of the same things with clients that I share here with all of you, is this just self-exploration and meeting ourselves on the page. Beautiful, Barbara. I love that. Thank you. I'm just going to bring that little starry galaxy all the way down. We want to really see the intermingling of the energies of as above, so below. Thank you, Barbara. And so there we have just a very, very simple illustration inspired. Oh, thanks, Tori. Oh, you're thinking of the poem Two Sisters by Josephine Jacobson. Got it. Got it, got it. I misread that. So using the poem Two Sisters by Josephine Jacobson, that sounds beautiful. I don't know that poem. And the artist is Diana, I'm going to butcher her last name, Sudica maybe. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, her art is exquisite. And again, we can be inspired by other artists, but and use their work as inspiration and then make it completely our own. We're going to just get some of those stars here. And I'm almost feeling like I want a little row of trees here behind her. It feels important to sort of maybe capture some of those trees. So I'm going to come in with my dark green here. I love this. This is one of the Nova colors, deep green, and it is deep, deep green. It's great for mixing other colors. Just get some quick pine trees here down in the background. And that just helps also sort of create that illusion even more of her sort of standing in the foreground and the looking off into the distance by just adding some of those simple silhouettes of trees. And that makes this tree over here even more in the foreground. And I'm thinking it may need to be as big as she is. And that's going to make me a little happier, create a little better balance on this page over here. So I'm just going to grow that tree right to the top of the page. And notice I'm just using simple brush strokes to create sort of a very abstract giant pine tree. Some of that color and light still shining through, and big pine trees tend to get much broader at the bottom than they are at the top. We were up in Estes Park, Colorado at my mom's house right outside Rocky Mountain National Park yesterday, and I love being up there and surrounded by the trees. And now we have some, again, that nice sense of differentiation between trees in the foreground and trees in the background. A Tuscany look. I love that. Beautiful. So pretty happy with how that one came out. Again, it was really simple. The pages don't have to be complex. My intention here was to capture the sentiment of the poem by Rilke, and this is going to get, I think, taped in here but not attached, so I can flip this up onto the page. And so I think I'm just going to take a glue stick and glue the little flap onto this page on the other side. And this is a gel print left over here, and I really like that page, so I'm probably not going to paint that page because it's a pretty page all by itself. So I don't care about just adding this one little flip of a page in here and figuring out, yeah, it wants to be right smack in the center there, more or less. And I love that I'm filling this book up with poems and illustrations. Pull out my scrap pages from behind. So that tucking pages underneath your journal pages is just a great way to protect them so you don't get paint on those exterior pages and get them all stuck together. That was one of the tricks that I learned the hard way. So lots of luscious poems starting to come in here and fill this journal. So love that this journal is growing with my words and art and with these beautiful words of others as well. Haven't quite finished this page from last week, but love this poem by Marge Piercy, The Seven of Pentacles. We did some paper weaving. So lots of just luscious poetry and art growing together in my journal. And again, each one of these poems, the through line and threads of all of this has really been about connection to myself, self-discovery. Who am I? Who am I being on the page? How am I being on the page that I want to take off the page and out into the rest of my life? So again, every time that I show up here, I feel a little bit better, a little bit calmer, a little bit more confident on the page. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, and I will see you back here tomorrow with another poem and another art journal spread. So have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Happy creating. As always, thank you for joining me. Please click like on the video so we can encourage other people to watch along as well. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye bye.